You know, childhood memories are really important. Children experience things with a sense of wonderment and fascination that's sadly beyond most adults. That's why games that you grow up with can leave such a lasting impression on you. I certainly had my share of games like that, but this one is special. It just might be the most important game of my childhood. And I think it's time to revisit an old friend. Now, some of you younger folks might be watching this and thinking, how could anybody enjoy such a primitive-looking, clunky, slow-paced game? And the answer is simple. You had to be there.
It's Pokemania everywhere, from Burger King to the king of internet retailing.
If you guys don't know what Pokemon is, you're in need of some serious remedial toy education.
Pokemania. If you were a kid in the late 90s, odds are you had it.
Oh, a spinning
Toys, cartoons, manga, movies, t-shirts, breakfast cereal, the Pokemon Live musical, gold-plated cards at Burger King, Pokemon canned pasta. Can you eat them all? And who could forget the trading card game, which made just a ridiculous amount of money? Satoshi Tajiri bringing the idea of Pokemon to the Game Boy was like Nintendo and Game Freak striking oil with gold in it. And diamonds. And bitcoins. The numbers don't lie. Pokemon is literally the highest grossing media franchise in the world, raking in over $100 billion. And it all started right here, on a snazzy red or blue cartridge in a sleepy little place called Pallet Town.
Oh, forgive me. Here, hit me with that and we'll all be even. No, I couldn't hit you with that. But I can with this. Oh! See that? Oh!
As a kid, I always thought it was nuts how the adults around me had all grown up watching black and white TV shows, and yet there I was, putting all my time into a black and white video game, except it wasn't actually black and white. See this box the Game Boy came in? Lies and deceit. It should have been illegal for Nintendo to show this on the box, because the real screen doesn't look anything like this. Or this. Nah, it looks like this. This is what I'd stare at for hours as a kid? Ugh. No wonder I wear glasses. If you're a kid that plays nothing but Fortnite, or a parent that never understood what all the fuss was about, hi Dad, I'll give you a quick rundown of the concept. You, as a young trainer, leaves home on a grand adventure to catch wild Pokemon, or pocket monsters as they were called in Japan, and use them to defeat 8 gym leaders and the Elite Four, by leveling up, learning new moves, and most importantly, evolving into stronger forms. Evolution, the peak of childhood excitement. The first time I leveled up and saw a new text box pop up with that little musical jingle, I knew something incredible was about to happen. This is the greatest moment of my life. And yes, I would max out the volume every time this happened, as we all did. I think the main reason these games were so appealing to kids was the sheer amount of customization. Kids like making choices, and Pokemon games are just filled to the brim with them. You're telling me there's 150 different monsters in these games and I get to choose a team of 6 to fight for me? Well, sign me up. But there's so much more to it than that. Every monster has their own set of moves to learn as they level up, but you can only have 4 at a time, making the decision of dumping one move for another have massive implications for later fights. Not to mention the technical machines, or TMs, that are one-time use items that teach moves. And let me tell you, Gen 1 got a little goofy with how these TMs work. Normal type monsters can learn so much weird stuff that just doesn't make any sense. My Nidoqueen Juju wound up becoming an elemental powerhouse, with access to a water, ice, and an electric type move. Why can Raticate learn Thunderbolt? Don't we already have an electric rodent? And why can Haunter learn Psychic, the type that it's most weak to? Like I said, goofy. And just to really hammer home that feeling of truly having a team that's uniquely yours, you can nickname your Mons. Something I didn't bother with as a kid, but I've grown quite fond of doing so lately, like in my current playthrough of Black 2. There is another reason though. It's because the fans that have never played Gen 1 are going to be tearing their hair out trying to identify my team from some of these really awkward back-facing sprites, and I find that hilarious. Which leads us to... Alright, here's the deal. Pokemon first released in Japan as Red and Green. Later they would get the blue version with bug fixes and updated sprites, which is what we got in America 2 years later. This boggles the mind because considering it was Game Freak's second chance at developing these sprites, we still wound up with stuff like this. Oh, poor Machoke. He looks like he's just suffered a stroke. I know this is supposed to be a crack in Cubone's skull helmet, but it makes him look like he has a big grin on his face, and that's something a Cubone should never have. Venusaur from the front? Pretty good. Venusaur from behind? My favorite Kingler looks great from the front, even if he's only supposed to have the one giant claw. That's what makes his design unique. He even has the one claw in his back-facing sprite. Somebody really dropped the ball there. That is not an intimidating battle pose. That's what somebody who never learned martial arts does while yelling, "Whoa!" This is what Golbat has looked like for many years. Decent design, nothing particularly stands out, but for this brief period in time, giant nasty tongue. What, did Lickitung not already have that market cornered? Goldeen looks very unimpressed. I actually think Tentacruel's new sprite looks great. Love the attitude with the crossed tentacles. I don't know what has Blastoise so angry. He looks like a customer at Walmart waiting for an employee to bring him a mobility scooter. And for the grand finale, we have the worst sprite ever in a Pokemon game.
Look at this. Take a look at this. Oh my god.
Raichu, my dude. They did you dirty. There are many times when these sprites can look even uglier than Princess Monster Truck, and I say that with all the love in the world. There's nothing more comforting and wholesome than starting up a new game of good old-fashioned Blue. Unfortunately, the battery that made saving possible in this cartridge died a long time ago, but you can easily just emulate it, or get the version on the 3DS before that service shuts down for good. Although you may want to think twice before getting that version. You'll see why later. I'm sure a lot of you remember this little interaction, picking your starter, getting challenged by your rival on the spot, and losing due to bad luck. In terms of bad first impressions, this one's a doozy. Thankfully, I think Game Freak was well aware of how discouraging this would be and left a single healing potion in the PC for diligent players to find, making this fight an assured victory. Man, I am so excited to get out into this world. I'm gonna defeat the toughest trainers, take down an evil crime syndicate, check out a luxury cruise ship, sail across the ocean, fly through the skies, do some ghost busting and cave spelunking. It's gonna be awesome. But first, I'm gonna need to fight a lot of birds, rats, and bugs. Metapods and Kakunas are lightning-quick affairs if you started with Charmander, but if you didn't, be prepared to be bored to tears. All they can do is harden to increase their defense, making these fights about as exciting as mashing the A button on a slot machine. Even the show joked about it with a Metapod v Metapod battle. This is why my preferred method of playing this is to use an emulator with fast forwarding. I don't feel bad about it, and you shouldn't either. I spent so much time grinding and looking for a Pikachu in Viridian Forest that my Nidoran's tackle ran out of PP. Yeah, PP. It's the amount of times a move can be used before needing to be restored, and it's supposed to be an abbreviation for power points. But come on! There was one time when me and some buddies were quietly playing Pokemon together when one of us said, "I keep running out of PP." I started giggling, then my other friend chimed in, and we just evolved into a bunch of laughing idiots. Ah, Lord. PP. After nabbing myself a Rattata and Nidoran, and almost losing on the optional fight with my rival because I didn't grind enough, I stepped through the doors of Pewter City's gym and prepared to face off against Brock. Apparently I'm pretty hot, but not as hot as Brock. Knob, my dude, what were you thinking when you translated this, man? Here we go, my first gym battle. I'm prepared for a long fight full of twists and turns. I beat him in like 30 seconds using Bulbasaur's Vine Whip. Is he shirtless? Dude, I think he's shirtless. Type weaknesses, a brilliant staple of the Pokemon formula that sets it apart from other turn-based RPGs. Some games in the genre started implementing similar weakness systems, but it often made for a negligible difference or was just too much of a pain to engage with. Often both. But here it's a vital mechanic that often means the difference between victory and defeat. It's even easy for kids to understand. Water and ground douse fire. Fire burns grass. Grass absorbs water. Water conducts electricity, which I would learn many years later isn't exactly 100% true. Thanks, Electro Boom. This system greatly encourages having a well-balanced team, and it certainly makes the first playthrough interesting, since you won't have any idea what types certain mons are or what they're weak to, unless you check out the instruction booklet. There's a handy little type chart that helps a lot. You can find archives online that have preserved this booklet and some old strategy guides, so I highly recommend checking them out. They're really nice nostalgic reads, and that classic art style of Ken Sugimori is such a treat. Everybody has angry eyes and I love it. I find it a lot more appealing than the happy, bright-eyed faces of modern trainers. Professor Oak has never looked more old and crotchety than this. I'd completely forgotten that gym badges in Gen 1 boost the stats of your Pokemon. It's mostly a pointless mechanic since progression is often gated off until certain gym leaders are defeated, but it's pretty neat. This is Youngster Joey, and he has something very important to say. Man, there are so many trails that are just filled to the brim with trainers, and every single one of them wants a piece of me. They are a necessity since they give experience and money, but it gets tedious fighting the same old monsters over and over. Why not throw in a Farfetch'd or two? How about a Psyduck or a Krabby here and there? Anything to not fight another Ekans that keeps using Wrap, which by the way, was way more tedious to deal with in Gen 1. For having 150 monsters, Red and Blue sure isn't interested in using most of them. Having most trainers only use mons that are available in their current area does make for a more consistent world, but it's to the detriment of the gameplay. Speaking of fighting the same monsters over and over, in order to reach Cerulean City, you gotta slog through Mount Moon, a large cave system with multiple pathways and a serious Zubat infestation. An extremely annoying mon that can use Supersonic to confuse your party and make the fight drag on longer. After nearly losing to a Team Rocket member with his level 16 Raticate, and muscling my way into one of this guy's fossils, I stepped out into the much appreciated fresh air and made the short walk to Cerulean City, where the first thing I did was buy some repels. It seems like Game Freak wanted to show players how certain monsters can be really annoying, and then give the option to prevent those fights from happening. As long as the monster at the top of your party list is a high enough level, those low-level pests will stay away. I also made my way into this guy's backyard to get myself a little gifty. Can you tell I played this game a lot? As for the second gym leader, Misty, well, she says her policy is an all-out offensive with water-type Pokemon. Okay, so that must mean she's a really aggressive fighter, right? She then proceeded to use X-Defense on her Staryu and Starmie. Yeah, all-out offensive.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
After swiftly earning my Cascade badge, it was time for the third round with my rival, and this is where my man Dante the Geodude really started showing his stuff. Rock types are great in the early game since very few trainers have anything that can penetrate their defenses, and since I taught him the Mega Punch TM that I found back in Mount Moon, he can also dish out some great damage. It reminds me of back in the day when I had a Graveler that was my MVP for a playthrough. Nothing could take him down. I'm sure that says something about the game's balancing, but hey, this just goes to prove my point about giving enemy trainers more monster variety. I tried doing an old trick where if you make this trainer move out of the way and save your game in this little area before loading, you'll be trapped since the trainer will be back in his original spot and you won't have access to cut for the little tree. But it didn't seem to work this time. Strange. I fought my way past Nugget Bridge and got my free nugget, helped Bill transmogrify himself back into a human, retrieved the stolen Dig TM from that dastardly Team Rocket member, who for some reason was still hanging out in the backyard of the house he just robbed. These guys aren't too bright. I decided to leave Freedom the Jigglypuff at the Pokemon daycare for some easy level ups. Why did I name it Freedom? I'll never tell. You need to be careful when using the daycare, because any moves learned by leveling up will be learned and placed at the bottom of the list. If you had a really good move placed at the top of the list, it would get moved up a bracket and forgotten without any way to get it back. Remembering forgotten moves wouldn't be possible until Gen 2. It's not too annoying since learned moves are actually pretty sparse in this gen. Here's Krabby's move list in blue, and here it is in Sword and Shield. Most of the best moves come from TMs, which I like. It makes buying and hunting them down a lot more exciting.
Look at Randy Orton slithering. Watch out, watch out, watch out! Oh my God!
And then there's the same tedious ritual I perform every time I play this game. There's an underground walkway that leads to Vermilion City, and on the ground are 2 hidden items. There's no way to get the item finder this early in the game, so the only way to get these items is to take one step, press A, take another step, press A, rinse and repeat. Only the full restore is even worth the trouble, but I can't stand leaving items uncollected or trainers unfought. I'm kind of a pack rat in this series. It was when I arrived at Vermilion City that I really started to appreciate what a nice and well-constructed world this is. It's called the Kanto region and is based on the real Kanto of Japan. Celadon and Saffron City are supposed to represent Tokyo, and Vermilion City is based on the coastal city of Yokohama. Putting all the real-world references aside, there's just a lot of little things that add to this world's charm. NPCs can walk around, go shopping, or hang out at the local Pokemon Center. There's a Jigglypuff hanging out at this one for some reason, which I would say is bad for business if it wasn't a free service. This guy's Machop is helping him build a house. The bustling Celadon City has a massive shopping tower and a casino for playing slots. Oh yes, we'll get back to that later. There are plenty of rivers and coastal pathways that can lead to other zones or useful items once you learn Surf, along with trees in early areas that can be returned to after learning Cut. And there's just so many places to explore. The power plant, the Seafoam Islands, a decrepit old mansion that hides intriguing secrets, the cycling road which gives you an alternate way to Fuchsia City as long as you have a bicycle. Satoshi Tajiri once said in an interview with Time magazine,
"When you're a kid and get your first bike, you want to go somewhere you've never been before. That's like Pokemon."
The thrill of exploration is very real for a kid. I'd hike up steep hills through the woods of Appalachia and spend hours walking along the Ohio River just to see what I could find. I'd also swim in it, which is probably why I'm a skeleton, but let's not get into that. It's a lot like Shigeru Miyamoto's inspiration for Zelda, how he would explore the caves and countryside around his home as a kid. The world of Blue may look primitive today, but for me, it was an amazing place with so many possibilities. Plus, it's just a nice world to be in, like Pleasantville, if Pleasantville had violent monsters waiting to ambush you in tall grass. Just back away slowly. It'll charge if it senses weakness. Pokemon Blue, a game so nice that it was remade twice. Before tackling the third gym, I decided to take on something that I enjoy very much, the SS Anne. You get a ticket to board after helping Bill back on Route 25. You don't ride it anywhere, you just kinda get to look around and rate it for items and easy trainer battles. Ah, le strong silent type. Oh ho ho! I don't think the newer games still do this, but back in my day, we looked in the trash for useful items. Not this one though. Don't ever look in this one. My rival's back again, now with an updated sprite. I like that, it's a good way to portray growth. He still proved no challenge thanks to my Raticate's Hyper Fang, another excellent way to steamroll the early game. I then gave the captain a back rub, it makes sense in context I swear, and got the Cut HM to remove small trees and patches of tall grass. How many of you didn't know you could do this? Be honest. Farewell, SS Anne. Safe travels on your trip to... Well, nowhere very far away, I guess. Who builds a cruise ship on a friggin' lake? My fight with Lieutenant Surge went about as you'd expect. He says that electric Pokemon saved him during... the war? That's disconcerting. What's that I was just saying about what a nice world this is? Well, sorry, Lieutenant, but unlike in the cartoon episode, which was just plain nonsense, your electric attacks won't do a thing to my Graveler. A good offense is a strong defense, but an untouchable defense is just plain dirty. Man, you can break this game over your knee if you know what you're doing. After using Cut to get some items I couldn't reach earlier, I hit up the rock tunnel to progress, and suddenly it hit me. Using a move to light up dark caves, using another to quickly travel between visited towns, items hidden in inconspicuous locations, timeless monster designs and musical jingles that have stuck around ever since. Kinda reminds me of Dragon Quest considering it's Japanese, it's not very surprising. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I punched the entire cave's population of Zubats in the face, finally started to get some variety in the trainer battles, and moved on to the next locale and one that deserves special attention because of how radically it changed the tone of this game. A lot of you already know what's coming. It's time for Lavender Town. Lavender Town is not a happy place. It's a harsh and jarring confirmation to the player that, yes, Pokemon can die in this world. The Pokemon Tower was built as a resting place for deceased Mons, which begs the question, why is your rival here, and why is his Raticate missing in this fight? The place is overrun with ghosts that I can't fight without a certain item, so there's nothing left to do besides head west to Celadon City. Not through here though. This leads to Saffron City and the guard won't let me through for some unexplained reason. Gee, he sure is thirsty though. This left me confused and frustrated for hours as a kid, but we'll get back to it later. Instead, there's another underground passage just outside, which means Celadon City, a bustling metropolis, by Game Boy standards anyway, and home to a ton of stuff to do. First taking this secret back entrance through this building and nabbing an Eevee, then going back in through the front and experiencing what was probably my first third wall break in a video game, with the Game Freak devs, a tradition that's in each new generation. I'm sensing a pattern with the characters this guy likes. Next, the Celadon Shopping Tower for all your Pokemon needs. Not showing the names of these TMs until after you buy them is not very customer friendly. I love these demo stations with Super Nintendos. Reminds me of playing Donkey Kong Country 3 on a Walmart demo station. Strained the hell out of my neck, but it was worth it. A sports game? Dad'll like that! Confirmation that your father does indeed exist. Here's another floor where you can buy some evolution stones. I didn't plan on using Eevee, so I just used a Firestone on it for the bit of extra dex completion. Gotta pick up some muscle milk from a punchy rock, and then the top floor is the only place in the game where you can buy 3 different drinks from vending machines, which is how you get past the guards into Saffron City. I didn't know these were vending machines as a kid, resulting in me getting stuck and frustrated for way too long. Let's just put aside the video game contrivances for a sec and look at the absurdity of this. First, how are these the only vending machines in the entire game? The newer games like X and Y have them all over the place, so it's not too hard to figure out what they are. And the fact that a Mountain Dew is the key to getting past a guard into a major city is just nonsense. I'll tell you what though, you can't beat getting an Ice Beam TM for the low cost of 1 freshwater to this little girl. And Tri-Attack just for a lemonade? Oh yeah, I know who I'll be giving that to later. Thanks, random rock in the wall. I decided to clear Erica's gym using just the power of Raticate's Teeth of Annihilation. No, for real, he bit his way through every fight in here, including Erica with little difficulty. Can't say this guy doesn't eat his veggies. I got the Mega Drain TM for winning, which brings up an interesting point. There's an oddly high amount of moves in Gen 1 that heal you. Absorb, Mega Drain, Giga Drain, Leech Life, Leech Seed, Rest, Recover, Dream Eater, Soft Boiled. Hell, there could be more. Leave a comment if I missed one. Time to grab myself a coin case and do some gambling. Don't touch the poster at the game corner. There's no secret switch behind it. Now's a good time to talk about your original goal given to you by Professor Oak. It was the tagline for the series back in the day, gotta catch 'em all. But I would bet money that less than 0.01% of players actually accomplish that task. Why? Because doing so would take hours upon hours of time, patience, and friends that really like you. You'd have to catch every mon unique to the Safari Zone, which is constantly frustrating with how easily the rare ones can run away, not to mention how long it takes just to get them to show up at all. Then you'd have to spend hours tediously pressing the A button at the game corner until you get enough coins for Porygon.
You want how much?
And that's after taking the time to meticulously try each machine a few times to find a hot one with a higher win rate. Yes, that's actually a mechanic. And even then, jackpots still don't come very often. After finally getting one after about 10 minutes of sped up gameplay, I got 300 coins. Man, screw this, I'd rather just trade in money for coins, and it's not exactly a generous exchange rate. At least you can get some free coins from NPCs and scattered on the floor. But then there's the hardest part, trading. A genius business decision, since Blue and Red single-handedly sold the link cable. I don't think anybody used this thing for anything but Pokemon. This is where you'd find out who your real friends are, since you'd have to get them to trade you the 2 starters that you didn't take, the 2 evolutions you didn't take, and then Hitmonchan or Hitmonlee, which, fun fact, totally named in honor of Jackie Chan and, oh, Bruce Lee? Aw, I always thought it was Jet Li. I love his movies.
You lying little...
Then you'd have to trade all the version-specific mons like Growlithe, Mankey, and Oddish. And then there's the 4 that only evolve to their final forms after trading, which I don't really care for. Give me Haunter over Gengar any day. I like the grabby hands. If this laundry list of chores hasn't discouraged you yet, maybe this will. For collecting all 150 Pokemon, you get an in-game diploma. That's it. You can't even print it out with the Game Boy printer. That wouldn't be possible till Yellow came along in 1999. If you thought spending years in college for a fine arts degree was a pointless endeavor, try collecting all 150 Pokemon in Blue. And yes, I know there's technically 151, but I'm not even going to get into how inconceivable the idea of getting a legit Mew would be today. And no, it's not under that stupid truck. Before laying siege to the Rocket hideout, I went over here to get my Fly HM and to catch a Doduo named Try Guy, whom I immediately teach Fly to because it makes me laugh. The dude doesn't even have wings. I like to think he just jumps really high to get from place to place. He's also one of the few mons that can learn Tri Attack, a pretty strong move that throws a pool rack at the enemy. It definitely got a lot cooler looking in later gens. Alright, time to give Team Rocket a spanking. First thing to do is grab this PP up in this random bush, which I wanted to use on Tri Attack, but got a little overzealous with the button presses. Oopsie, that never happened. This is the first occasion where you gotta start dealing with these aggravatingly slow directional tiles. They're not rocket science, but they do make mistakes or missteps extra annoying. You can grab a Horn Drill TM here, but it's better not to bother with one-hit kill moves. Their accuracy is terrible, and they don't even work on mons with a higher level, which is where you'd think they'd be the most useful. After a while, I made it to the basement and had my first face-off with Giovanni, a name that always amused me since there's a local pizza chain where I live called Giovanni's. Great pizza, little greasy though. He's no challenge to me, easily going down to my Ivysaur's razor leaves. He retreats afterward, promising we'll meet again, and leaves behind the Sylph Scope to deal with those pesky ghosts in the Pokemon Tower. I was kinda hoping that without Team Rocket controlling this place, maybe the coin price of Porygon would drop some. It does not. That's about it for Celadon City. Next up is Saffron City. Here, take your stupid drink. There's a lot to do here too, but it's not all accessible just yet thanks to Team Rocket. That's one of the things I like about this game. Around halfway through you start getting some freedom to go where you want. The first thing that everybody should do when they come here is go to Mr. Psychic's house and get a free Psychic TM. I'll be saving this one for a mon that absolutely shouldn't be able to learn it later. I stocked up on some good stuff at the Pokemart, which is a good time to point out that there is no sort button for your inventory. You have to press select on an item and meticulously move it to where you want. Also, your inventory is limited to 20 items. Yeah, back in the day, we actually had to use the PC to store items. And if you were smart, you would store every ether and elixir you found until the end game. Let's try taking on the fighting dojo. They're pretty high levels, so it was a good chance to get my do-duo caught up in experience. You get to choose a Hitmonchan or Hitmonlee for beating the master, and while I didn't use it for this playthrough, I always preferred Hitmonchan for its easy access to different elemental punches. I kinda have that slot in my party filled already. That's all I can do in Saffron City for now, so let's head back to Lavender Town and take on the Pokemon Tower. The Sylph Scope automatically reveals the ghost's true forms and lets me fight them. Of course I catch myself one, and of course there's only one appropriate nickname. Now let's teach it Psychic, which doesn't make any sense because ghosts get murdered by Psychic type moves. In fact, Psychics are downright oppressive in Gen 1, but we'll talk more about that later. I complained about the hordes of Zubats in caves, but I think this place might be even worse. Everything in here is either a Ghastly or a Haunter. These aren't Pokemon trainers, they're shrine maidens that have been possessed by ghosts, and I have to free them. I like that. And of course, there's also the odd Cubone here and there. Bone Dog. Hell yeah, dude. It took a really long time for this guy to get strong enough to hold his own, but once he did, he rocked the town. Strangely ironic that I caught him just a few steps away from where this encounter takes place. This is the spirit of a Marowak, Cubone's evolved form, that died protecting its child from Team Rocket. So it's official, the Cubone I just caught is that child, and I will avenge its mother's death. Rest in Poke Heaven, you absolute legend. Before moving on, I backtracked a bit to this patch of blessed ground that heals my party. Thanks, Game Freak. Now to hit the top floor and make these rockets feel my rage. Man, that's a cool sprite. That is legit intimidating. Coughing, yeah. Rattata, yeah. Zubat, yeah. I've fought it all before. Get out of here, you posers, and don't come back. For saving Mr. Fuji, I get the Poke Flute, which means I don't have to carry around Awakenings anymore. And I can finally get those Snorlaxes out of the way. Also, I gotta make room for Bone Dog in my party, so Willard, you served me well with your teeth of ill omens. Enjoy your rest, buddy. Why doesn't anybody talk about the music? Especially considering that Junichi Masuda not only composed the soundtrack, but also programmed the game. How can a man pull double duty like that and still create a soundtrack that is so timeless, with so many memorable melodies? The theme of Pallet Town is like coming home to me. The SS Anne has this elegant tune that portrays the luxury of a cruise ship. The cycling theme captures that joyous feeling of a boy and his bicycle. The gym leader theme does an amazing job of sounding both intimidating and yet still having some uplifting melodies to cheer the player on. And of course, the route themes are, well, they're the soundtrack to adventure. That's the best way I can describe them. I had originally planned on making a video about Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories around now, but listening to Skotane's orchestrated soundtrack brought so many memories flooding back, and I just had to do this instead. Should a day come in the future when my memories of Blue are getting rusty, I'll bet playing some of this soundtrack will bring them back to life faster than a Max Revive. There will be a link to Skotane's Bandcamp page in the description below. Please go check it out sometime. Ugh, catching Snorlax is a friggin' chore, man. Oh, now we're talking. Skipping the Great Rod straight to the Super Rod. Now I can catch my favorite Pokemon. What's not to like about Kingler? Giant red crab with a giant claw, unique attack with Crab Hammer, sky-high attack stat, and it was a massive asset to Ash during the Pokemon League in the show. I didn't play it, but I was really happy to see Kingler get some love in Sword and Shield with its own unique Gigantamax or Dynamax form or whatever they called it. This route from Lavender Town to Fuchsia City was always a slog. It's so long and clogged with trainer battles that I actually started avoiding some fights to get to the Pokemon Center. I did manage to encounter a Ditto right outside the city, which brought back another painful memory of this game's occasional clunkiness. My PC box is full and needs to be manually switched before I can catch more. Can you imagine facing a legendary and getting hit with this message? Hope you saved your game. I suppose I'll hit up Koga's gym first. Kinda strange that it's a poison-themed gym, and the first type you get hit with is a psychic? There are 4 other trainers in here that all have psychics too. I think somebody fell asleep at their keyboard. Well, at least I can show you what Horn Drill looks like when it actually hits. I remember these invisible walls being really hard to see on the original Game Boy screen, but on a widescreen TV in black and white, they're not a problem. Koga's a super cool ninja dude. Too bad he's just fodder for getting my Krabby some quick experience, and goes down pretty easily to Spooky, the psychic haunter. Did you know that you can fish at these statues in every gym? I always liked how Fuchsia City is set up like a zoo with some rare Pokemon on display. No doubt a result of being home to the Safari Zone, which I've already talked about how frustrating this place can be. You either have to throw food to keep them on from running away, or rocks to make it easier to catch. It never made much sense to me. Also, they got real lazy with the music in here. It's just the evolution theme being played over and over on repeat. The guys at the door say you're on a timer, but really you get 500 steps before getting booted out. It's just enough to find the Warden's gold teeth, the Surf HM, and some other useful items strewn about, but you might need to take a second excursion if you're rusty like I am. With enough patience, you can catch a Pinsir or a Dratini with a Super Rod so you don't need to save up coins at the game corner. But once again, I'd like to stress, these guys will run away at the drop of a hat. I even tried save scumming to catch a Pinsir just for laughs and gave up out of frustration. I've been trying not to mention gold and silver in this video, but the bug catching contest was so much more enjoyable than this. Give the Warden his gold teeth and he'll give you the strength HM for moving boulders. People complain about HMs taking up valuable move space in your party, and I get that for moves like cut and flash, but surf, strength, and even fly are all excellent moves for battle, so I don't mind using them. The game nudges you into using your new ability to surf from Fuchsia City, but I know a much quicker way to Cinnabar Island, by surfing from Pallet Town instead. Oh yeah, here's the guy with 6 Magikarp that exists just to waste the player's time. This is another one of those bizarre things that became a tradition in each game for some reason. Ah, Cinnabar Island, home to the lab where I can finally get those fossils I collected a while ago restored into living Pokemon. I thought about using Aerodactyl as my new flying type, but switched back to Dodrio after a while. You just can't beat that Drill Peck and Tri-Attack. This is also where you can encounter the legendary bug, Missing No, short for missing number. Yeah, it's not a bug type. It's a garbled mess of pixels that'll brick your game if you try to catch it. Through this convoluted method that involves watching this old guy teach you how to catch a Pokemon again, you can use this encounter to duplicate items. Infinite Master Balls, Elixirs, Rare Candies, you got it. I did it once as a kid for Infinite Rare Candies and felt absolutely disgusting afterward. I deleted that save file soon after. Now that I can easily fly back here whenever I want, let's go back to Saffron City and take it back from Team Rocket. The Silphco building, longest dungeon in the game, and pretty intimidating to tackle for a kid. I'd get lost in here constantly. It still wasn't as bad as the Eagle's Tower dungeon from Link's Awakening. That still gives me trouble today.
Please, leave me alone until after the experiment.
I never really liked how this one inconspicuous tile is the one that sends me right into another battle with my rival. Thankfully I was prepared this time, but that Alakazam of his is starting to get scary. You get a Lapras for winning this fight, and ideally you'd want to backtrack to the napping room to heal up before continuing, but I'm hardcore. Actually I lied, I just didn't find it. Giovanni doesn't scare me at all. Thanks for the Master Ball, Mr. President. I can't wait to never use this. Now that I can take on the Psychic Gym leader Sabrina, it's time to talk about when Psychic types were out of control. Every type in Red and Blue is supposed to have 2 other types that it's weak to. Psychics were supposed to be weak to Bug and Ghost moves, but ironically, due to a bug in the code, they wound up being immune to Ghost type moves instead. And if that wasn't bad enough, the only damaging Ghost move was Lick. Nightshade worked differently by dealing damage based on the target's level. That left only Leech Life, Twin Needle, and Pin Missile as damaging bug type moves, and aside from not being very common, they're all terrible. This was why the addition of Dark and Steel types in Gold and Silver was so desperately needed. Something had to be done to bring Psychics down a peg. Thankfully, Sabrina's Alakazam was extra stupid and let me finish it off with a lucky crit. Otherwise, I could have actually lost this fight. Girl, why do you have a whip? Next, it's back to Cinnabar Island, but I can't fight Blaine until I find the key for his gym in the old mansion, which would mean he's either locked himself in his own gym or it's a rite of passage? I don't know. Either way, this place has some intriguing information about the discovery of a Pokemon called Mew, and the genetic experiments that led to its violent clone. Just a little something for the player to think about later. Bone Dog really started showing his stuff in Blaine's gym. Impressive considering he doesn't even know Bone Meringue yet. His Arcanine gave me a little trouble with a couple of lucky Fire Blasts, but other than that, he wasn't too difficult. Well, this has truly been a grand adventure, and now with 7 gym badges in hand, it's finally time to go back to the first city I visited on my travels. The leader of Viridian City's gym is back. But who could it be? Yeah, it's Giovanni again. Seems his plan was to resurrect Team Rocket after I single-handedly dismantled them at Silphco, but after pounding him into the ground, he says he can't face his underlings and that Team Rocket is finished forever. At least until they break into the lucrative Slowpoke tail market a couple years later. I don't think I can put into words the sheer excitement I felt over 20 years ago, the first time I collected all 8 gym badges. This was it! The Pokemon League, the Elite Four! Hearing about these in-game had my imagination soaring at the possibilities of what was in store. But before starting my trip down the Victory Road, that's not a turn of phrase, it's literally called Victory Road, there's a roadblock in the form of my rival, again, with his
Level 50 Alakazam? It was only 35 last time we fought!
Oh great, it even has Recover! People might be quick to assume that Dragonite was the original strongest Pokemon, maybe Mewtwo or one of the legendary birds, but honestly, I think it's this guy. Level 50 my foot. Victory Road, the final test before reaching the Elite Four. It's an enormous cave system filled with boulder-pushing puzzles and some of the toughest trainers in the game. This guy's even rocking a Charizard. Not to mention Moltres, which I forgot was here and not in the Cinnabar Mansion. Once you leave the cave system and take those final steps to the league doors, the theme captures perfectly what any kid would be feeling at the time. This is it. My first time facing the Elite Four was like a horror experience. 4 tough-as-nails battles with no clue of what types I would be dealing with, no trips back to the Pokemon Center, and worst of all, no saving. It's time to finally cash in all those ethers and elixirs I've been hoarding, because the last thing I want is to run out of PP on my best moves. I'll either walk out of here a champion or a chump. Let's do it. I started off against Lorelei by maxing out my Kingler's attack stat with Swords Dance. I'm guessing her Dugong kept using Rest because it's a Psychic type move and its other moves wouldn't have been very effective against my Water type. Wow, I'm honestly surprised that didn't take it out. And then things got a little weird. Stomp managed to take off almost 2/3 of her Cloyster's HP, which was to be expected, it has really high defense. But then my next Stomp only did this much, and it crit! Is my attack so high that it's bugging the game? Wouldn't be surprised, there's still a lot of bugs in this release. Whoa! I don't remember confusion damage cutting my HP in half. What is going on in this fight? At least the rest of the fight goes pretty smoothly. I cancelled out a couple of her turns with flinches from Stomp. And that's Lorelei taken out by a Kingler single-handedly. Taking advantage of type weaknesses doesn't necessarily mean always using super effective attacks. Sometimes taking advantage of the system defensively is the better option. Next up is Bruno, who I like to call the evolved form of Brock. He opens with Onyx, which is just sad. I took out like a dozen of these guys on Victory Road. Then it's Hitmonchan, whose Thunder Punch would have concerned me if my Kingler wasn't faster on the draw. Hitmonlee, you're done, son. Another Onyx? Bruno, you're embarrassing yourself, dude. Come on. Last up is his Machamp. Can it put up a good fight? Oh, you're just gonna use X-Defense on it. How are you in the Elite Four again? Now it's time to beat up an old lady. Agatha uses ghosts and a couple other nasties, which I thought might be a problem at first, until I remembered that ground is super effective against ghosts. And as it turns out, I have one of the strongest ground moves in the game. Oh yes, Bone Meringue hits twice. Agatha actually surprised me a little. She's one of the few trainers that will actually withdraw a mon if it's been afflicted by a status ailment. Not bad, but still no challenge. Oh my god, just one more fight and I'll be the Pokemon League champion. Lance, the Dragon Trainer. Let's do it. I did goof a little when I assumed that Grass would have been super effective, but Gyarados has Flying as its secondary type, which messes that up. So instead, I used Toxic and started stacking double teams on Dodrio. Not the most honorable move, but I think my vastly lower levels more than make up for it. Want to hear the loudest sound in the world? Did you know that missing a Hyper Beam means you don't have to spend a turn recharging? That's nice and fair, isn't it? Get out of here, Dragonair. You deserve to have pool racks thrown at you. The second one goes down just as easily.
Wanna see me run to that mountain and back? You wanna see me do it again?
Man, Try Guy's really strutting his stuff in this fight. As long as his high evasion from Double Team keeps him safe, I might be able to... oh. No big deal, because I still have an ace that I've barely used for the whole game. Remember when I traded a Fresh Water for an Ice Beam TM?
I did it! I beat the game! I'm the champion! What?
I had never felt so deflated in my life. This is easy for a long-time veteran that knows what they're doing, but as a kid, I vividly remember failing to even reach Lance multiple times, let alone actually defeating him. And after many tries and grinding sessions, I finally overcame him just to be told that the name Elite Four doesn't necessarily mean that there were only 4 fights. I was weakened, discouraged, and most of all, I was pissed. I nervously stepped through the doors and faced my true final opponent. You. The rival who I defeated every step of the way, who continued to taunt me despite my repeated introductions of his face into the dirt. Also, I'm pretty sure I accidentally killed his Raticate. There he stood, fresh as a daisy, while I was stuck with a party that was half beat to hell. I lost my first time facing him, but that was over 20 years ago. Now I'm back. I'm stronger, wiser, and I'm ready to show the people watching this video that you ain't nothing but a bitch. Not for long.
enjoyed your 15 minutes as champion, you jabroni! It's still just as amazing as it always was. Blue is the Pokemon formula at its most basic. Like Tetris, new mechanics would slowly be added over the years in an effort to squeeze out the formula's full potential. Mechanics like genders, breeding, held items, natures, abilities, day and night cycles, new types, and more. But also like Tetris, the original concept was kinda already perfection. Sure, it's a little clunky, slow-paced, and primitive looking, but the idea of going on a grand adventure while slowly building up a party of monsters to help you out is a timeless concept, and a rock-solid foundation for a video game. Why do you think so many companies have tried to pull a ditto and copy the idea? The many hours I spent with Blue are some of my most cherished childhood memories. I loved this game as a kid, and I still love it today. Now I leave those memories here as a record that hopefully future generations can watch and learn what all the fuss was about. Thank you for watching. This is A Skeleton, signing out.